Anti-war protests on college campuses continue to escalate, with some clashes even turning violent. Here's a live look now at Capitol Hill, where the House is planning to vote on a bill Republicans say will curb anti-Semitism and get the protests under control. Washington correspondent Maddie Biertemple shows us where that bill stands.
This was the scene at UCLA Tuesday night. Fireworks went off and ambulances were at the ready as protesters clashed over the war in Gaza. In Congress, some lawmakers say it's out of control.
This has got to stop.
Republicans want to crack down on what they say is blatant anti-Semitism. Texas Senator John Cornyn says this conduct goes beyond free speech.
The line between protesting and rioting has been crossed.
Some Democrats, though, praised the pro-Palestine protesters.
Time has expired. We must stand with our young people.
Michigan Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib said they should be protected.
Students' constitutional rights doesn't end when they enter your campus grounds.
The White House defended the right to peacefully protest.
Forcibly taking over a building is not peaceful. It's just not.
As divisions play out in the U.S., Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel meeting with leaders. He urged Hamas to accept a ceasefire deal and release hostages.
There is a proposal on the table, and as we've said, no delays, no excuses. The time is now.
Blinken also pushed Israel to get more humanitarian aid to Gaza.
That was Maddie Biertemple reporting, and we're joined now by our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. And Khalif, we've seen these really across the country, coast to coast, right? So we have protests going on in UCLA where things turned pretty violent yesterday. We have New York and even here in North Carolina. And so they've all run the gamut. But what do we need to keep in mind here when we talk about free speech and the right to protest?
The very first thing you got to keep in mind is that free speech is not free. I first commend any person that put on a uniform that fights for our freedom. So I'd say starting there. But then you'd also have to remember that there are requirements to what can and cannot be limited with free speech. I'd say on college campuses, just like high schools, the speech is extremely limited. Colleges can limit your type of speech, where it will be at, something called time, place, and manner. That's a big thing they talk about in law school. I can never limit the content that you're talking about, but I can limit where you talk about it. So you want to talk about, women's rights, you can't talk about it in the middle of the college campus, but you can talk about it on the east side of the college campus. Those are things that are very, very deeply entrenched in the Constitution in terms of the First Amendment. But what I can say on university campus, it's a very tricky type of landscape. Something that I would look at for a number of people to look at is the University of Chicago put a study out in 2014 called the Chicago Statement. And you have to remember what was happening at that time. People were going to these college campuses. We're in the heat of the woke movement. And everyone is saying, no, these guys can't come. No, they can't come. And so colleges pushed back and said, you know what? We have to have college universities and college campuses are locations where we have to encourage what it says, free, robust, and uninhibited debate. And they go on to say, if we don't do that, if this is not a place where free inquiry and debate and discourse happens, we cease to be a college campus. And so 90 plus colleges have signed on to this Chicago study. Your institution is one of them. University of North Carolina system is one of them. Columbia is one of them. And so what happens is when you have these colleges that say you want to have this free debate, now you're put to a place and it's easy to talk about free debate when everything's fun and giggly. But when you're having a debate where you don't agree with the people are talking about, that's when you really have to be tested. That's when our Constitution's tested. That's when these type of statements are tested.
But a lot of the cases that are happening right now isn't just, I don't agree with you. There's some things that are turning, they're escalating, right? So where does that line stand? When can people actually be arrested?
Well, I'll echo what the president of Penn said. When your speech, even if it's something that I don't agree with, if it's something that people may say that's anti-Semitic, just because I don't agree with what you're saying, I don't have a right to stop you from saying it unless now your statements have turned into threats. Now your statements have turned into action. That's what the Constitution says. And so that's what the last congressman was saying in that previous segment. He says, listen, we have to stand with the students because this is what our Constitution requires. It requires us, even if we disagree on content, that you have a fundamental right to say those things, even if they're offensive, even if they're hurtful. I can think about when I was a kid, I saw the Klan march right by me. Did I agree with anything they were saying? No. But as someone that believes in the Constitution, they have a constitutional right to be there, to say that. Now, if their action, their words now turn into action and they start to try to go after folks in the middle of the street, Now you've bridged the line. Now you went over what is constitutionally allowed. And that's what's happening on these college campuses. These students are saying, I have a constitutional right to say these things. Now, it's even different on private campuses, more restricted, tighter. The colleges are able to do whatever they want. But on these public institutions, a lot of these things that are happening are, I would say, alarming because they are borderline violating these students' constitutional rights. And if you watch some of these videos, it is going overboard with the content in terms of the way that they're saying, I don't even just not like what you say, I don't even want you to be here. When they have a constitutional right to be here. This is a public space. Public tax dollars pay for this space. And so limiting them even being present there is problematic. So there will be lawsuits on top of lawsuits on top of lawsuits after this. And this is unfortunate because the very thing, again, free speech that we're supposed to have access to, unfettered, limited in capacity, it's being trampled on in a number of places. And these students are doing what we've seen in the past, what all Americans have done. If you look back at Kent State, the Vietnam War, people were out there fighting and protesting. And people said at that time, those kids didn't know what they were fighting for. Well, they did. They just didn't agree with the war. Right now, these kids don't agree with what's happening, and they are taking their constitutional right to say something about it.
Well, this is something that happens in American history over and over again with protests and our right to free speech. And these will likely continue in the coming days and weeks. So we'll kind of see what happens there. Kali, thank you.